Welcome to the fourth episode of Power Podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're peeling back the charming facade of the corporate world, really looking underneath.
We are. We're diving deep into something pretty startling.
Yeah.
The, well, surprisingly high number of psychopathic personalities you can find, often right near the top in American business.
Yeah, it sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it? Snakes in suits.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say psychopath, I mean, my mind jumps to, Hannibal Lecter or some fictional villain, not necessarily the VP down the hall.
That's the common image, definitely.
Yeah.
But the reality, as the research and the cases in Snakes in Suits show, it's far more insidious and, frankly, much closer to home for many people.
So what's our mission here? What are we trying to unpack?
Okay, so the goal today is really to understand how these individuals, the ones who are deceitful, manipulative, often completely lacking a conscience, how they not only get into organizations but actually thrive, how they climb the ladder.
Right, not just survive, but succeed.
Exactly. Using the structures of modern business sometimes to their advantage.
And for you listening, what we want to give you is, well, the ultimate shortcut. The tools to spot these corporate cons, maybe protect yourself, whether it's your boss, someone on your team, maybe even a client you're dealing with.
Think of it as essential knowledge for navigating today's workplace. You might have some real aha moments today.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's dive in. Where do we start? Who are these people, really?
Right, so let's clear up that first big misconception, the Hollywood psychopath versus the real thing. As you said, people think of violent killers, Dr. No, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the extreme cases.
But many, probably most, psychopaths are nonviolent. They lead these kind of parasitic lives. They don't necessarily break major laws, but they cause incredible hidden damage, economic, psychological, emotional, all while looking perfectly normal on the surface.
Parasitic lives.
Right.
Wow, so they're embedded in regular jobs, regular lives.
Yeah, absolutely. They blend right in. Which brings us to the definition. Psychopathy isn't actually a mental illness in the way we typically think of one, like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. It's a personality disorder.
Okay, what's the key difference there? Personality disorder versus mental illness.
Well, a key aspect is that personality disorders are seen as more ingrained, pervasive patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. It's not typically something with acute episodes like some mental illnesses. And crucially for psychopathy, the defining feature is this profound lack of conscience, an inability to feel empathy, guilt, or real loyalty to anyone but themselves. It's this core emotional emptiness.
That's chilling, the emotional emptiness. But people throw around terms like sociopath, psychopath, ASPD. Are they all the same thing? It gets confusing.
It really does. And they overlap, which adds to the confusion. So Antisocial Personality Disorder, or ASPD, is a broader clinical diagnosis in the DSM, the big diagnostic manual. It focuses heavily on a long-term pattern of, well, antisocial behaviors, disregarding rules, impulsivity, aggression, deceitfulness, that sort of thing. Often criminal behavior.
Okay, so ASPD is more about the actions.
Largely, yes. The observable behaviors. Now, psychopathy is related. Many people with psychopathy would also meet criteria for ASPD, but it's considered a more specific construct. It puts more emphasis on the interpersonal and affective traits.
Affective, meaning the emotional side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The shallow emotions, the lack of empathy, the lack of remorse, that emotional emptiness we talked about, and the interpersonal stuff, the superficial charm, the manipulativeness, the grandiosity. So psychopathy captures this specific combination of a charming, manipulative exterior and a cold, empty interior.
Ah, okay. So for the corporate world, focusing on psychopathy makes sense because it's that combination. The charm gets them in the door, and the lack of conscience lets them operate ruthlessly.
Precisely. That's why we focus on the traits outlined in tools like the PCLSV, the Psychopathy Checklist, screening version. It helps identify that specific pattern.
Let's dig into those traits then. You mentioned Hervey Cleckley's idea, the mask of sanity. That sounds like they're masters of disguise.
They really are. Cleckley's work was foundational. He noted that despite often having normal, sometimes even superior intelligence, I mean, you don't usually get into senior management without being pretty sharp, they show incredibly poor judgment in life decisions and a real lack of insight.
Wait, smart but poor judgment. How does that work?
Because their judgment is always, always filtered through immediate self-interest. Long-term consequences impact on others. That just doesn't compute in the same way. They're also pathological liars.
Yeah.
Consummate liars.
About big things, or...
Everything. Big things, small things, things that don't even matter, things you know aren't true. It's almost compulsive. But, and this is critical, they often seem incredibly sincere while doing it. Believable. Charming. That mask is Very, very convincing to people who aren't looking closely.
Okay, so let's look under the mask. You mentioned the PCLSV breaks it down into 4 areas.
That's right. 4 domains that give us a clearer picture.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is the interpersonal domain. This is how they present themselves. Think superficial charm. They can be witty, engaging, the life of the party, seem really interested in you. Grandiosity is huge here, too. A really inflated sense of self-worth, believing they're smarter, better, more entitled than others. And, of course, deceitfulness and manipulation run right through this domain.
Wow. Okay, so that's the package they sell, the perfect candidate in an interview, right?
Absolutely. Nail it in interviews. Then comes the affective domain. This is about their emotional life or the lack of it. This is where you see a profound lack of remorse or guilt. They genuinely don't feel bad about hurting people. They don't accept responsibility for their actions. It's always someone else's fault or just bad luck.
Always someone else's fault. I think we've all met someone who does that.
Right. And crucially, shallow affect. They don't experience deep emotions. They might mimic anger or sadness if it serves a purpose, but it's not genuine. And a real lack of empathy. They just can't put themselves in other people's emotional shoes.
How do they survive performance reviews if they never take responsibility?
They spin, they deflect, they find scapegoats. They might reframe a failing as, taking necessary risks or call their cruelty tough decision-making. They're masters at manipulating perception.
Okay, what's the third domain?
The lifestyle domain. This is about how they live day to day, often very impulsive, acting on whims without thinking ahead. They tend to lack realistic long-term goals. It's more about the next thrill, the next win.
Yeah.
Irresponsibility is common, seeing rules, promises, contracts as things that apply to other people, not them. And they often have a high need for stimulation, get bored easily.
The live for the immediate score idea, that doesn't sound very compatible with a long-term corporate strategy.
Not usually, no.
Yeah.
Unless the strategy involves constant, chaotic change or quick, predatory moves, they're built for the sprint, not the marathon.
And the last one.
Finally, the antisocial domain. This covers their behavior, often over time. Poor behavioral controls. They might have a short fuse or react intensely when frustrated or criticized. And often there's a history of antisocial behavior, maybe starting in adolescence, continuing into adulthood. This doesn't always mean serious crime. It could be patterns of lying, minor fraud, irresponsibility, violating rules.
Okay, hearing that whole list, it's hard not to start thinking, oh wait, my boss does that, or my coworker said something like that. You start mentally checking boxes.
And that's totally natural. But it's really, really important to stress this. Psychopathy exists on a spectrum, a continuum. Most people have very few of these traits, scoring near 0. That's the sliding into sainthood Anne Cleckley talked about.
Sliding into sainthood, I like that.
Right. But the people who cause real problems, the ones rising into big trouble, they score high across all these domains, consistently, pervasively throughout their lives. It's not just being a jerk sometimes or being ambitious or having a bad day. It's the pattern and the density of these traits combined. A few traits don't make a psychopath.
So if these traits are so destructive, why does it seem like corporations are, well, fertile ground for them? Why business? Haven't powerful organizations always attracted ruthless people?
They have, sure. Ambition and ruthlessness aren't new. But the structure of business used to act as more of a barrier, interestingly. If you look back at the classic bureaucracies, say, from the 1940s up to the early 70s, those places were actually pretty tough environments for a psychopath to thrive in.
Really? Why would a big, rigid company repel them? Seems counterintuitive.
Because those old-school organizations ran on very strict rules, clear hierarchies, standard operating procedures. They valued conformity, team play, long-term loyalty. Think the gold watch culture, right? You stick around, follow the rules, you're taken care of.
Right. Predictability and stability.
Exactly. And a psychopath is fundamentally a rule breaker, not a team player, and only motivated by immediate personal gain. Their impulsivity, their lack of loyalty, their tendency to cut corners that would stick out like a sore thumb in that kind of rigid system. They'd get caught, documented, and pushed out by the hierarchy.
Okay, so what changed?
Well, things started shifting dramatically in the 70s. And really accelerated through the 80s and 90s. The period the research calls the organizational wars. Think massive waves of corporate takeovers, mergers, hostile acquisitions, constant downsizing. The mantra became lean and mean.
Ah, the era of disruption. Everything got shaken up.
Totally shaken up. Organizations became flatter, more freeform, faster-paced. Stability went out the window. Constant change became the norm, almost a business necessity just to survive.
And that chaos, That created the perfect environment, the perfect camouflage for them.
You got it. Chaos is their friend. During these times of intense transition mergers, restructuring, rapid tech changes, high turnover people, the rules get blurry. Policies are suddenly outdated, procedures are unclear, and there's often a much greater tolerance for aggressive, whatever it takes, even slightly rule-bending behavior, just to get things done quickly.
So the chaos gives them two things they need.
Exactly. It provides the stimulation they crave, they get bored easily, remember. And it provides the cover they need to operate. When everything's confusing and changing fast, it's much easier for them to manipulate, lie, and cover their tracks without immediate detection. They thrive where the old rules don't seem to apply anymore.
Okay, but still, why do companies keep hiring them? If these traits are ultimately harmful, why do smart executives and HR teams fall for it? Are we just mistaking the package for the real deal?
That's a huge part of it. It hits right at the vulnerability of modern hiring practices, especially for leadership roles. Some psychopathic talents, quote-unquote, are incredibly attractive on the surface.
Like what?
Their charm, their charisma, their ability to talk a good game, especially using abstract corporate buzzwords fluently. Their sheer confidence, they can command a room. The job interview itself is like their ideal stage. It's a performance, and their lack of conscience means they can perform, lie, and mirror what they think the interviewer wants to see, without any internal conflict or nervousness.
And the higher up the ladder you go, the harder it is to measure actual performance, right? It gets fuzzier.
Absolutely. As jobs become more senior, the qualifications become more abstract. Strategic vision, leadership potential, driving change. When the metrics get subjective, interviewers often fall back on gut feel or chemistry.
And the psychopath plays right into that.
Perfectly. They present this polished, confident, perfect candidate image. They make the interviewer feel good, feel understood, feel like they've found someone special. That gut feel gets completely hijacked by sophisticated impression management.
I can totally picture an executive meeting someone like that, feeling energized by their confidence and thinking, yes, this is the leader we need. Maybe even ignoring some warning signs because the chemistry felt so right.
That happens all the time,
Yeah.
and it's reinforced by what managers say they're looking for. Universally, they want people who are bright, conscientious, honest, and socially skilled. The research shows that the corporate psychopaths studied were consistently described exactly like that by their bosses and supporters.
Wow. So they successfully projected the exact image the company was looking for.
Precisely. They appear conscientious because they might focus intensely on impressing a specific powerful person, their patron, even while neglecting everything else. They appear honest because they lie so convincingly. They appear socially skilled because their charm is superficial, but effective. The persona works. So when they get in, how do they operate? The relationships they form are, well, they're not really relationships in the way we think of them. They're purely transactional, predatory even.
Okay.
The whole process of manipulation often follows this kind of natural, almost automatic three-phase pattern. It's all geared towards parasitic gain.
A three-act play of deceit. Okay, walk us through it. Phase one.
Phase one, assessment. They're incredibly quick studies of people. They read you fast, figuring out your likes, dislikes, your motivations, your needs, your insecurities, your weak spots. What makes you tick? What are your hot buttons?
Like psychological reconnaissance?
Exactly. And at the same time, they're calculating your utility. What can you do for them? Do you have money, power, access to information they want, influence? Can you make them look good? If you don't have anything they value, they'll likely just ignore you or discard you quickly.
Wow, that's cold. Calculating your value and your vulnerability in the same breath.
That's the mindset. Then, if you're deemed useful, they move into phase two, manipulation. This is where they build the psychopathic fiction. They create this persona, this web of charm and deceit, specifically designed to gain your trust and loyalty.
The mask of sanity again?
Precisely. They lie pathologically, making up impressive backstories, credentials, connections, achievements. They're absolute masters of impression management. And here's the key. They tailor the mask to fit the specific target.
Tailor it. How so? Give me an example.
Okay, say they're dealing with a powerful, maybe slightly narcissistic executive. The psychopath might become incredibly deferential, flattering, praising the executive's brilliance, making them feel like the smartest person in the room, convincing them the psychopath is their loyal protege.
Okay, sucking up, basically.
But skillfully. Now, if they're dealing with someone lower down, maybe someone anxious or lacking confidence, the psychopath might switch gears completely. They might appear kind, understanding, supportive. I'm the only one who really gets you, I'll protect you. They mirror what the person needs to hear to feel safe and special.
So they're like chameleons, presenting completely different faces to different people. That must take a lot of effort to keep straight.
You'd think so, but for them, maybe not as much as for us. Because they lack that deep empathy, they don't feel the internal conflict or social anxiety a normal person would feel trying to juggle all those lies and personas. They just do it. They might even convince you they share your flaws, which is incredibly disarming. Oh, you feel insecure
Look
about
at.
me too, making you feel deeply understood right before they use that insecurity against you.
Ugh. Okay, so assessment, manipulation. What's the inevitable third act?
Phase 3, abandonment. It's simple, really. Once the target is no longer useful, maybe they've gotten all the money, information, or status they can from you, or maybe they just get bored, which happens easily. You're discarded.
Dropped.
Often abruptly, callously, and in a way that might be quite harmful to the person being abandoned. And the key here is they do it with absolutely zero guilt, zero remorse, zero concern for the damage they've caused. The target has served their purpose. On to the next.
That complete lack of guilt, that's hard to fathom. And all this relies on keeping things hidden, right?
Absolutely. Secrecy is crucial.
Yeah.
They need to keep their different manipulations separate, keep people from comparing notes. Corporate cons thrive when things are private, compartmentalized. And those chaotic times we talk about mergers, restructurings often involve increased organizational secrecy for legitimate reasons, like protecting trade secrets or negotiation positions.
But that secrecy inadvertently helps the psychopath.
Massively. It provides the perfect cover for their lies and manipulations. The less transparency, the more room they have to operate undetected.
Now, we've talked a lot about the charming manipulator. Is that the only style, or some just bullies?
Oh, definitely. Not all rely on smooth charm. Some use what the researchers call the macho style. They rely more on coercion, intimidation, threats, outright bullying to get their way and control people, less finesse, more brute force dominance.
Okay, so charm or intimidation.
Or sometimes a mix. And perhaps the most dangerous type is the corporate puppet master. This is someone who often combines manipulation and bullying, but does it from a distance.
A puppet master, how does that work?
They manipulate people underneath them, their puppets, into doing the dirty work. They'll get a subordinate to bully or undermine someone else further down the chain, while the puppet master stays clean, appearing above the fray. They pull the strings, create conflict, and watch the fallout, often feeling a sense of power from the chaos they orchestrate.
And the puppet is just as expendable as the ultimate victim, I assume.
Totally extendable. Both are just pawns in the puppet master's game. It's all about control and insulation for them.
Okay, so the psychopath isn't operating in a vacuum. They need other people to play roles in their corporate drama for it to work. The research talks about pawns, patrons, and patsies.
Yes, understanding these roles is key because the psychopath actively creates them. They manipulate the social environment to produce distinct groups. People who support them, because they believe the fiction, and people who are suspicious or have been targeted, the detractors. These roles emerge from that division.
Let's break them down. Who are the pawns?
The pawns are often capable, well-regarded employees. Think of Chuck in the case study, a solid, technical expert. The psychopath manipulates these pawns into doing their actual work, or defending their actions, or providing crucial technical backup. They often do this by feigning friendship or creating a sense of special kinship. You and I were the smart ones here.
So the pawn lends legitimacy.
Exactly. Because the pawn is often respected and competent, their association makes the psychopath look more credible. The pawn is used for their skills and their reputation, often without realizing they're being played.
Okay, then who are the patrons? The ones higher up.
Yes, the patrons are usually high-status executives. These are the people who have completely bought into the psychopath's performance. They become powerful advocates, using their influence and authority to protect the psychopath from criticism, negative feedback, or even formal investigations.
Why would they do that? Why are they so easily fooled?
Often, it's because the psychopath has expertly flattered their ego, mirrored their views, made them feel brilliant and insightful. The patron sees the psychopath as loyal, dynamic, maybe even a protege, reflecting their own good judgment. They have a vested interest in believing the psychopath is who they pretend to be. Think of the executives who put Helen, the Pitbull, in charge. They were her patrons.
Okay. Which leads us to the Patsies. This doesn't sound good.
No, it's the tragic role. The Patsies is often a former patron. This is the person who, having championed the psychopath, is ultimately betrayed, set up, or takes the fall for the psychopath's misdeeds or failures. They lose status, credibility, and very often their job. And frequently, the psychopath has been angling for that very position all along.
So the patron becomes the fall guy.
Precisely. They get played, used, and discarded, often taking the blame while the psychopath climbs over them.
The Gus and Helen case study you mentioned really illustrates this, doesn't it? Helen, the Pitbull, comes into a troubled division.
Yes, Gus was the COO, her boss, her initial patron, who gave her authority.
Yeah.
The situation was chaos, high pressure, unclear rules. Helen was a master performer. She controlled meetings tightly, made sure her team stuck to her script, presented this image of being dynamic, assertive, the fixer they needed.
And the executives bought it.
Hook, line, and sinker. Within months, she was getting rave reviews, positive press, looked like a miracle worker. But behind the scenes, she and her deputy Ned were cooking the books on a massive scale, fake accounts, hiding losses, siphoning money, pure fraud.
So how did Gus, the COO, the patron, become the patsy?
When things started to unravel, when auditors got close, Helen didn't hesitate. She went straight to the executive committee and spun this story, blaming Gus for the division's original problems, arguing his supposed mismanagement forced her to take unconventional, fraudulent actions. She framed him perfectly.
Unbelievable.
And the most audacious part, she successfully convinced them, reinforced her narrative, and got herself promoted to replace Gus as COO before the full extent of her own fraud was even uncovered by the board. Gus was out, his reputation ruined. Patron becomes Patsy. Classic case.
That story highlights the financial damage, fraud, theft, fines for the company. But what about the human cost? The impact on the regular employees?
Oh, it's devastating and often overlooked. People waste incredible amounts of time and energy just trying to navigate the lies, defend themselves from attacks, or deal with the stress of the abusive environment. Productivity plummets. Creativity dies. People get burned out.
Careers get stalled or ruined.
Absolutely. The emotional and psychological abuse takes a huge toll. Morale tanks. Good people leave. And the constant stress can lead to actual physical health problems.
Like Linda, the young accountant in that same case study, she was targeted by Helen, the Pitbull.
Yes, Linda was described as the unlucky target of much of the abuse. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just competent and maybe saw too much. She endured years of relentless bullying and stress, which manifested physically. She only found peace, literally felt physically better, after Helen and Ned were finally arrested and gone.
It's just awful. The cost isn't just on the balance sheet. It's measured in broken careers and damaged well-being.
Exactly. The ripple effects are enormous. Okay, so given how effective they are, especially with that charm, what can organizations actually do? Prevention is key, right? Catching them before they get in.
The hiring process seems like the most critical checkpoint. But how do you defend against such masterful performers?
It's tough, but not impossible. First, and this sounds basic, but it's crucial, verify everything. Don't take anything on the resume or in the interview at face value. Psychopaths build fictional histories. They exaggerate credentials, invent experiences, use friends as fake references.
So due diligence cubed.
Absolutely. Use reputable executive search firms, if possible. They often have better ways to check backgrounds. Scrutinize claimed credentials, check licenses online, verify degrees, look at publications they claim. If they say they wrote a dissertation, find it, look at it. Don't just trust the piece of paper they hand you.
Okay, verify. What else?
Second, you have to control the interview itself. Use structured interviewing. This is where many managers fail. They get charmed, go off script, let the candidate lead the conversation into a friendly chat about shared interests. Big mistake.
Because that's the psychopath's playground.
Exactly. Prepare specific, behavior-based questions beforehand. Tell me about a time you faced X and how you handled it. Stick to the script. Ask follow-up questions to get concrete details, not just vague self-praise. If they try to deflect with charm or an anecdote, gently but firmly bring them back to the question. You need facts, not just feelings.
Force them to provide substance, not just style. Makes sense.
And the third defense, maybe the most powerful organizational one, is do not decide alone. Never let one person make the final hiring decision, especially for senior roles.
Why is a committee so important?
Because psychopaths are brilliant at building separate one-on-one relationships. They might be incredibly charming and deferential to the CEO during their interview, but dismissive or contemptuous to the HR coordinator or an administrative assistant they met in the lobby.
They treat people differently based on perceived status or utility.
Precisely. When the hiring committee gets together and compares notes, how did they treat you? What was their demeanor like? These discrepancies jump out. If the candidate presented wildly different personas to different people, that's a massive red flag. It shows the charm is situational, calculated, not genuine. That inconsistency is often the giveaway.
That's really practical advice for companies.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's switch to personal defense. What if you suspect you're already working with someone like this? How can you, the listener, protect yourself?
It starts with self-awareness. First, know your utility. Be honest with yourself. What resources do you have that this person might want? Is it your skills, your connections, access to information, your budget, your reputation? They target people for what they can provide. Understanding your potential value to them helps you recognize when you're being targeted for exploitation, often masked as friendship or collaboration.
Be aware if someone seems overly interested in what you can do for them.
Yes. And they often prey on kindness, generosity, a sense of duty, or even pity. Be cautious if excessive flattery is quickly followed by requests for significant favors or resources.
Okay, know your utility. What else?
Second, and this is harder, know your flaws, lacks, and fears. What are your insecurities? What needs aren't being met at work? What do you fear? Failure, conflict, not being liked. Psychopaths are experts at netting these out.
And they use them against you.
It's often how they build the initial bond. They might seem incredibly accepting of your flaws, making you feel understood and safe. It's okay that you feel that way, I understand completely.
Yeah.
It's a powerful, reassuring message. But later, they can weaponize those very insecurities to manipulate or control you. So having a realistic understanding of your own vulnerabilities makes you less susceptible to that kind of targeted manipulation.
Know yourself, basically. Warts and all.
Exactly. And the best long-term defense against their inevitable attacks or smear campaigns is to build and maintain your reputation. Proactively establish a strong reputation for being competent, reliable, ethical, friendly, and loyal before you become a target. Do good work consistently. Be professional with everyone. But, and this is vital, don't rely on word of mouth alone.
Documentation again?
Yes. Document everything. If you get a verbal directive you're unsure about, follow up with a polite email confirming your understanding. Just wanted to confirm my understanding of our conversation earlier. Use the formal performance appraisal system. Don't just blow it off. Use it to document your achievements, get positive feedback in writing, and correct any inaccuracies on your record. Build a paper trail that proves your competence and integrity. That written record is your shield when they inevitably try to twist things or blame you.
Wow. Okay. Thinking about all this, it really makes you look at the whole corporate structure differently, doesn't it? If these individuals thrive in chaos and rapid change, what does that say about modern business itself? I remember hearing about that documentary, the one that sort of diagnosed the corporation itself as psychopathic.
That's right, the corporation. It made a provocative argument that if you apply the diagnostic criteria for psychopathy to the behavior of some large modern corporations, their singular focus on profit above all else, their disregard for harmful externalities like pollution or worker exploitation, their legal status as a person, but without a conscience, they kind of fit the profile.
It's a stark metaphor, but you can see the parallels, the relentless pursuit of self-interest without inherent empathy or remorse.
Exactly. Now, the authors of Snakes in Suits are careful to say this diagnosis doesn't apply to most corporations, but they do suggest that the attitudes and behaviors encouraged by a purely profit-driven, laissez-faire capitalist model can certainly mimic psychopathic traits at an institutional level.
Which ties into that ethics gap you mentioned earlier.
Right. That quote from the Canadian Ethics Commissioner about a scandal being seen as either a triumph of theft or a triumph of entrepreneurship, it perfectly captures that blurry line. In environments that heavily reward speed, risk-taking, and aggressive tactics, the difference between pushing the envelope for business success and outright fraud or manipulation can become dangerously thin.
So the very things we often reward in business ambition, speed, risk, disruption, might inadvertently create the ideal conditions, the perfect habitat, for individuals who are inherently wired to be manipulative, ruthless, and focused only on their own short-term gain.
It seems that way. They become the ultimate entrepreneurs of chaos, because in some modern organizational structures, chaos pays, at least for them, in the short term.
Okay, that brings us almost to the end of this really intense deep dive. Let's recap the big takeaways. We looked at the 4 domains: interpersonal charm, affective emptiness, impulsive lifestyle, and antisocial behavior.
We walked through the 3 phases of the con: assessment, manipulation, and abandonment.
And we identified those key supporting roles they create: the pawns who lend credibility, the patrons who protect them, and the poor patsies who ultimately take the fall.
For me, what really stands out is the sheer power of the persona, the mask, and the crucial difference between someone who's just a difficult boss and a true corporate predator often lies in the consistency and pervasiveness of these traits across their entire life, not just in one situation.
Right. It's not just bad behavior at work, it's a fundamental way of being.
And the danger is mistaking that incredibly polished, self-serving performance for genuine competence or leadership. We have to look deeper than the charm.
Absolutely. Well, this has been eye-opening, maybe a little unsettling, but incredibly important.
Hopefully useful for navigating the corporate jungle.
Definitely. We'd love to hear your take on this. What are your thoughts on the deep dive? Have you witnessed the pawns, patrons, and passies drama unfold in your own career? Drop a comment, let us know.
Yeah, share your experiences or thoughts. We're really interested.
And that's a wrap on our journey through the corporate politics. Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Till then, like the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss our latest podcasts.